Hello, everybody. So today we're talking about a topic that affects every investment decision you'll ever make, yeah, include every business decision you ever make. That's the macroeconomic environment. Think of the economy as the ocean, and individual investments are boats. As the tide rises, all boats rise. But when storms hit, it's crucial to understand how they'll affect different vessels. We'll explore key economic indicators and how they impact stock prices, interest rates, and the overall financial landscape. These are our learning goals, right? By the end of this session, you'll be able to explain GDP and how it's measured, understand the role of interest rates and the monetary policy, be able to identify the impact of inflation on investments. We'll also discuss how government actions, such as fiscal policy, influence market rates. Real world examples will be used to try to help you see how these concepts apply in practice. The stock market is not isolated from the economy, it's deeply connected. Think about how COVID-19 pandemic impacted global economies in early 2020. The initial shutdowns led to a steep drop in GDP, a massive sell off in the stock market. However, the Federal Reserve stepped in with monetary stimulus. Stock prices rebounded quickly, and tech companies like Zoom and Netflix experienced massive growth. This is a perfect experience of how economic activity, interest rates, and policy decisions affect market behavior. The economy moves in cycles of growth or expansion and contraction, recession. This is called the business cycle. During expansion, companies grow, unemployment falls, consumers spend more, leading to rising stock prices. But during a recession, companies struggle, they lay off workers, they reduce investments. This leads to falling stock prices. So in 2001, a recession triggered by the dot com bubble burst, tech companies like Cisco and Intel saw their stock prices plummet as overinvestment in internet related businesses started to unravel. Financial institutions, such as banks, insurance companies, and investment companies, are especially vulnerable to economic cycles. During the 30s, Great Depression, thousands of banks failed, leading to the collapse of the financial system. On the other hand, the 2020 pandemic had a similar impact on banks thanks to better regulation and, had a smaller impact on banks thanks to government regulation and federal regulations and intervention. So let's talk about economic activity and stock prices. Stock prices are a reflection of investors' expectations about future economic activity. Generally, when the economy is expanding, stock prices rise because companies are expected to earn more profits. But the relationship isn't always straightforward. Stock markets often act as forward looking indicators, meaning they react to what investors anticipate, not what's currently happening. And again, a good example of this might be Tesla. Despite the uncertainty of the pandemic, its stock still soared as investors anticipated strong future growth in EVs, supported by government stimulus and clean energy policies. The gross domestic product is the most widely used measure of a country's economic activity. It includes the value of all goods and services produced within a country. So the GDP contains consumer spending, private investment, government spending, and net exports. In the 2008 financial crisis, consumer spending and business investment declined. This was the mortgage crisis. That caused GDP to shrink. However, government spending and stimulus programs helped offset some of the damage. This is why understanding each component is crucial when evaluating the health of the economy. Viewing the changes in those individual portions of GDP can give us a clue as to where growth comes from. Is all growth good? So in this case, if one sector declines, another one can grow to keep GDP the same. So if the government spends less, businesses need to expand or GDP may decline. If interest rates are lower, business and consumers may take out loans to make purchases. This expands GDP. So different parts of gross domestic product will expand and contract based on the needs of the economy. So where will the economy go next? We can use what are referred to as leading indicators. These leading indicators predict where the economy is heading. They're metrics that change before the broader economy reflects the change itself. So three key indicators are average weekly hours in manufacturing. When workers' hours increase, it suggests higher production demand in the near term. Weekly initial claims for unemployment insurance. A rise in this signals that the economy could be slowing. People are losing their jobs. Businesses are laying people off. The economy may be slowing down. Manufacturers' new orders. An increase here means companies expect future growth. They're ordering ahead of the need in the production process. Consumer confidence measures how optimistic consumers are about the economy. I mean, this matters because when people feel secure about their jobs and finances, they spend more, boosting companies' revenues. That falls to the bottom line of the company, which then can lead to higher stock prices. The Consumer Confidence Index is provided by a company called the Conference Board, and the Consumer Sentiment Index is published by the University of Michigan. So in 2020, consumer confidence plunged due to the uncertainty surrounding COVID-19. But by 2021, as the vaccinations rolled out, it recovered, boosting retail sales for companies like Amazon. It also boosted sales and revenues for companies like Netflix. So these are what we refer to as leading indicators. This means that when we see them change, they are telling us about the change in the economic environment that we think is coming. When you see graphs such as this, we see these gray columns, gray bars here. These gray bars represent recessions. So there was a recession started in 2008, lasted till about 2009 and a half, somewhere around June or so. But after that, you see it declined. So it was down here at the very bottom, and then it started to rise. That means it's leading. As it's going up, guess what's happening to GDP? If you look over here, it's also, we see the same things climbing when we think about consumer sentiment. Lagging indicators confirm when the change has actually happened. And we also have something called coincident indicators. These give us a picture of what's currently happening. Let's talk about inflation. In general, this refers to general increases in prices over time. We have three basic indices that we can use. The Consumer Price Index measures the cost of goods and services bought by urban consumers. And I will say that there are many different versions of this. You can find the Consumer Price Index for the city of Cincinnati or for the state of Ohio, or you can look at the Consumer Price Index for products in retail in general. The Producer Price Index looks at the inflation received by producers for their output. So consumers, prices go up, we're measuring that increase in prices. But we also know that when producers buying product to create things for us to buy, those prices go up. This is the inflation at the manufacturing level. And then the last one here, personal consumption expenditure. This tracks how people are spending money. If you're starting to spend money, what that means is you must think that the future is going to be better, or you wouldn't be spending money today. So when inflation erodes, it erodes the purchasing power of money. For example, in the 70s, high inflation caused bond prices to fall because investors demanded higher yields to compensate for this loss of purchase power. So inflation is part of everything that we do. So how can we measure inflation? Again, it is a general rise in prices. Usually it's expressed as an index. In this case, we might refer to it as the CPI. Again, so we could have a formula. If you knew what the consumer price index was in June and July, you do a percent change, shows that it changed 0.43%. And if we annualize that, give us an effective rate, then the annual inflation rate here was 5.36. So this effective formula here converts our numbers to an annual basis. So where do we get this CPI? The government sets or creates what they refer to as a basket of goods. So in June, they looked at this basket of goods and they found out, I'm just using this as an example, that this basket of goods cost $242. In July, they took the exact same basket and calculated the price in July. So we showed that in general, the overall prices of the products in that basket changed. In this case, they went up, which infers some kind of inflation. Now, I gathered this from Fred's, the St. Louis Federal Reserve, Fred's database. This is CPI, the median CPI, from 2016 to 2024. And again, as you can see down here, up until around 2020, we had relatively low inflation, between 3, 4, 5%. We actually had a couple of years of pretty low inflation. If you look here at the very beginning, when COVID hit here at the very beginning, it was actually very, very low. But then it skyrocketed up into the 8 and 9% range. And now it's back down to a reasonable level, at least, down around the 4 or 5% range. So inflation is a very important variable to understand what is happening to our current ability to buy products. See you in the next video.